Le webinaire va bientôt commencer. Veuillez rester en ligne. Le webinaire va bientôt commencer. Veuillez rester en ligne. Le webinaire va bientôt commencer. Veuillez rester en ligne. Le webinaire va bientôt commencer. Veuillez rester en ligne. Le webinaire va bientôt commencer. Veuillez rester en ligne. La diffusion vient de démarrer. Tous les participants sont en mode écoute seul.
Okay, testing 1 2 1 2. Let me know you can hear the mic okay. And we're going to get started. Hi, Lucy, Chris, Langford, everybody. Okay, good. So the sound is working. That's what I was checking on. So I want to welcome everybody to day 18. I can't believe we've gone this far. It's day 18 of the trade challenge. And there's only a few days left. So just a couple of reminders. Number one, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? You should be seeing a slide. Okay. You should be seeing a slide, trade earnings. It's got the date on it, okay? All right, if you're not seeing the slide, you might want to log in and out and make sure something isn't going on, but everything seems to be working. So we'll get started. One of my favorite subjects, just a couple of reminders. Don't forget to get your video. Try to do your video today so you're not tied up with holiday, the week coming up, and submit the video. Try to get it done early rather than later. Do the best you can. Don't worry. As long as we can hear it, we're not judging production or anything like that, Kevon, so you don't have to worry. If the quality's not great, as long as we can hear you, that's all we care about. We just want to be able to hear you. So you only have until, the deadline for the video is coming up. There's not a lot of time left. The whole challenge is going to be over on Wednesday, so please mark down in your calendar. You got to come Wednesday. It's part of the whole end of the challenge. Eric's going to be training and doing a great session on Wednesday. So we still have a bunch of great sessions coming up. Today should be a lot of fun and interesting. It's a Sunday, so let's get started. Any questions, any big problems that anybody needs help with? If you want, why don't we wait until the end? I'll do the presentation, and then if anybody needs help with anything, we'll talk about it, okay? So we're going to talk about the subject today is trade earnings with futures. So let me give you some history of how this all started. So years ago, it's really going back quite a long time ago. We were setting up end of the day trades. We were trading the NQ and the ES. And I was always noticing during earnings period that the NQ was moving dramatically during earnings. And I just sat down and put my old thinking cap on and started doing a whole bunch of testing. And I realized that there was some opportunities to trade the NQ on the major FANG stocks. All right, so what do we mean, the major FANG stocks? So let me see if I have a nice picture of them. I might. Let's see. So you got Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. All right. And then we added Intel. We were doing IBM for a while. And over the years, we've added Microsoft. We are now doing NVIDIA. We're doing Snap. We're looking at AMD. So we've gone from, 4 or 5 setups where we are now every earnings period, we're trying to increase the number of stocks that we're adding to our methodology. But let me be very clear. We are not trading stocks. We are not trading options. We are trading futures, okay, using our software to trade earnings of major companies that move the market. So we're also looking at the YM. We started looking at UPS. We started looking at, we never traded Tesla before. We've now started trading Tesla earnings. So it's just a unique and different way to try and make money with the same tools that are at our disposal, and we're adding some. So let me tell you a little bit of history about how it started. So when it started, I'll show you what my charts looked like. They were kind of goofy looking, but back in 2018, our charts looked very different than the way they look now. And that's probably true of if you look at your own charts. If you were trading back in 2018, I guarantee you that you'll find your charts and they don't look anything like the charts you're using now. So let me see if let's see what we got here. So this is going back to 2019. And a lot of you are familiar with my charts. They don't look anything like this anymore. All right. We were using different candles. We were trading with zones. We were using tick time frames, tick charts, completely different indicators, a lot of different things that we were doing. And in those days, I didn't even use all the tools that I knew were available. All I did when I first started out, I was using Yahoo Finance to try and track earnings. And then as time went by, I realized that we could upgrade our brokerage account to a multi-broker account so that I could open an account with Thinkorswim. I could fund the account with very little money. You can fund a Thinkorswim account with $50, and they're an amazing company. They give you data that you could look at, real-time data. So I'm using Thinkorswim now to get real-time stock data, and I can load Thinkorswim into my NinjaTrader. Let me show you what I mean. So when I first started, I was literally just trading the move on the NQ. I never had a clue as to when it was coming out, when the earnings would be released. And it's been years of perfecting and updating the way that we do this, but it has reached a point now where, because of a tremendous amount of research, we've been able to convert most of our earnings to breakout trades. We actually added a feature to the software called the adjust button. It was originally made for earnings. It's actually a button that we use all the time now, but it makes it so that you can center your brackets. So when we take a trade, what we do is we normally would put a bracket above the current price, which is here. That's the current price. And then we have price that's going to go long above it. And then we have a bracket that's going to go short. And when the market moves, we get pulled in. Those are the actual orders. We get pulled in the direction of the move. In the old days, when I was trading earnings, the only thing I had to go on was the move. I didn't know when the earnings were out. I didn't know. I really was trading blindly, but it was such an interesting method. It still worked more often than it didn't. And as time has gone on, we've added more and more features, more and more tools to help us do this more reliably. But the key has also been the amount of research. The issue with earnings, one of the biggest challenges, is the release of earnings is not regulated in the same way that news releases are regulated. In other words, they're not allowed to release the jobs report before 8:30 on a specific Friday that they are, supposed to release it. It would create a big controversy if the news was early all the time, not reliable. But with earnings, the companies are releasing their earnings, and they can choose when to release them at their own whim. So it literally has taken years for us to figure out that some companies are reliable with their earnings, other companies are not reliable in terms of when they're going to release them. So we have elements and techniques, or what I should say is we have trade setups in our software that allow us to trade earnings if a company is not reliable in terms of the time, and or if they are reliable. If they are reliable, we can use our traditional breakout trade, which means we can usually count on a specific time for the earnings. And that has been a question of research, watching, studying the earnings reports, and then coming up with setups. We have another setup, so that's a breakout setup. There's another setup in our software. It's called the one-click range trade, and we designed that specifically for earnings. It allows us to put orders on the chart, and then we can manually move our orders while we're waiting for the earnings to come out. And in fact, we can do that on a breakout trade also. So in other words, if I put a trade on, for instance, and it is Sunday, there's no data. So let's see if I can even get, the software to trigger. It may not trigger, but if it doesn't, let me just see if it'll trigger. It probably won't. So let me do this. So instead of doing an automated trade, what I can do is I could put a buy up here just to give you an idea of what we might do before we really knew what we were doing with our earnings trades. In the old days, we would be waiting for the earnings to come out, and I would be physically manipulating my orders, moving them up and down. Price would be moving, and I would avoid getting filled. If I move too close to the price before earnings come out, there's the possibility of getting filled. You don't want to do that. The concept is you want to get your orders as close as you can to the current price of the instrument you're trading and get filled when the price explodes. So let me show you what I mean by showing you an earnings trade that took place. So to give you an idea, we've traded a ton of, or a moderate amount of Tesla. Tesla's new. The issue with Tesla is they didn't used to release their earnings at a time that they were tradable, but now they are. So we trade Tesla earnings. And the way that it works is we're able now to just put our orders on the chart. Tesla earnings come out. You could see I'm manipulating the orders, which you could do in any breakout trade anyway if you wanted to. Your orders go on the chart before the news comes out, and there would be times you might want to adjust the brackets. The idea is you want your brackets as close to the current price without getting filled. So we're patiently waiting for Tesla to come out. If you'll notice on the right here, I'm actually looking at Tesla, okay? I'm actually looking at Tesla using my Thinkorswim and my NinjaTrader multi-broker account. So integrated into NinjaTrader, I can watch the Tesla stock price. So I know exactly when those earnings come out. However, what's going to happen more often than not is I'm going to get pulled into the trade while I wait for the earnings to take place. So I'm watching the real stock chart, Tesla. I'm also watching my Thinkorswim charts, and I'm trading the NQ on Tesla, because Tesla, when it releases its earnings, is going to have a very big move on the NASDAQ. So watch. It's seconds away from a move, getting ready, patiently waiting. Here we go. Get ready. Tesla released their earnings. Price chops a little bit, and then it bursts up, and it's going to hit all my targets. It was a little nerve-wracking because it didn't burst all in one shot. Watch it go right through. It's going to pop through. There it goes. And that was like just under $600 trade, recent Tesla. So that gives you an idea. The basic concept is I'm using an actual TD Ameritrade second connection. Now, again, it is Sunday. I should be able to connect, but you're not going to really see, we're not going to see any price action, obviously. So this was probably Friday's Tesla close. So I can integrate the actual Tesla charts into my platform. So due to the research that we've done, I've come up with setups for Tesla, for Facebook, for Meta, for Intel, for a tremendous amount, well, for a moderate amount of stocks that are going to move futures markets so that we could trade earnings with them. And let me show you a couple of different trades. So I always like when members send us a screenshot. And I like it even more when a member shows us, hey, look, I traded Facebook with you all. This was in February. Now remember, earnings are quarterly, and they traded with micros. All right, so you can trade earnings with micros. You could trade earnings with the full size NQ. They made almost $100 trading Facebook on one of our earnings rooms. So sometimes there will be multiple stocks having their earnings the same day. So the rules are different. We have different setups. You can't always trade every single earnings. In other words, if we have Facebook and Amazon at the same time, sometimes we might have to choose and only trade one of them. Okay, let me show you a meta setup. So this was trading Facebook. This was an October setup. And I just happened to pull the most fairly recent setups that I could find. And our orders go on the chart, just like a regular breakout trade. And boom, Facebook comes out. That was a $950 trade. And you saw I was only in the market for a few seconds, okay? A few seconds. My orders are going to show up. We did the research. We know when Facebook normally releases their earnings these days. It's at a very specific time. I do my research going back years because we're talking about quarterly releases. So you can look back 8 quarters to see when they were releasing their earnings. Facebook tends to be very reliable about the way they release their earnings. Again, that was a $955 trade. Apple is another company that releases their earnings in a very reliable way. And it's very interesting. So about 9 months ago, something dramatic changed with the instruments, the indexes that we trade. At 4:15 to 4:30, the indexes always used to close for 15 minutes. Now, Apple, just to give you a hint about the way they trade, Apple releases their earnings. I don't want to use the word always, but almost always at 4:30 p.m. when they release their earnings, a couple of seconds after usually. But over the years, there have been a few times they've released their earnings earlier, a tiny bit before 4:30, and then plenty of times a couple of seconds after. The challenge with trading Apple earnings was when the market was closed between 4:15 and 4:30, we couldn't always get our orders on the chart for Apple. So more often than not, we would miss the trade. The market would be closed. We would try to put our orders on. But the problem is, if the market's closed, putting an order on a chart doesn't also send it to the exchange. Okay, it doesn't send it to the exchange. The markets need to be open for your orders to get sent. So let me see if I can find an Apple trade going back to give you an idea of the challenge, because it's quite interesting. So I would say that half the Apple trades we used to miss. Occasionally we couldn't get our order on in time, and we had some winners. It was mixed. And it was really frustrating because I knew when they were going to release them, but I knew I also wouldn't always be able to get my orders on the chart. Now, an interesting thing happens. If a market closes for a few minutes, right? What's going to happen when the market reopens? There's going to be a gap, right? There's going to be a gap. So what happens is you have to wait for that gap to take place. If you try putting your trade on before the gap, you're going to get filled as the gap takes place. It's not going to be a real trade for earnings. It's just going to be a gap trade. You follow me? All right. So going back, and I have no idea if this was a winning trade, a losing trade. What I want to try and show you on this video, let me find the right one. Let me get the correct one. Hang on. I want to see if I have a video for Apple when the markets were closed. So in other words, I knew Apple was going to do their earnings. This goes back to 2020. I knew their earnings were going to come out, but I have to wait for the gap to print so that I don't get pulled into a trade before the gap. So it's very challenging. There's a little gap right there. Then I want to get my orders ready. Now, this particular day, we missed it. The earnings are there. Those exploding moves, I was way too late to take advantage of those earnings because the market was closed at the exact moment that Apple actually released their earnings. But something really interesting happened about 9 months ago or so. Whatever the reason, the markets no longer close between 4:15 and 4:30. So we can now study Apple's earnings, figure out the time that they're going to release their earnings, and I can put my orders on the chart, okay, in time to catch a trade. So here, my orders are on the chart. Apple shoots down and we make $890 being on the chart for about 5 seconds and getting pulled into the market in the direction of the initial move. There might be multiple moves because if you notice, the stock actually shoots up. We made our trade and we made our money on the way down. Once again, we don't care if the price goes up or down. We only care that it goes in one direction. That's the most important thing that we care about. So by studying these moves, by recording the moves, by looking at the size of the moves, the timing of the moves, we can figure out what kind of trade to set up on the NQ. We have traditionally a very big bracket. We might have a 40 or a 50 tick bracket for an earnings trade. We might have a 60 tick stop, but we know that using these large oversized setups allows us to survive these large moves and catch the bulk of the move. Also, like I was saying, Apple this particular day, look at the stock, the move on the right here. We made our money when the price went down and we got out of the trade quickly. We were done. I don't really care what Apple does right after our trade is over. I don't really care if their earnings were good or bad or indifferent. All I care about is that our setup catches the moment that the earnings come out, and that at that moment, there's a solid move in one direction on the NQ, if the NQ is the instrument that we're looking to trade. So, summarizing what we do to trade earnings and the tools that I use. You can trade earnings. What I would recommend is here's something interesting. if you notice on my screen, you see this dark apple chart, right? Now, maybe you already have a Thinkorswim account and you're also a NinjaTrader customer, but you don't have a multi-broker NinjaTrader account and you don't want to buy the upgrade. You don't feel like spending the money to upgrade your brokerage account because it costs money to add multi-brokerage capability. You can do what I'm doing here. I'm booting Thinkorswim and NinjaTrader at the same time, and I'm using one of the gadgets in NinjaTrader and the gadgets in Thinkorswim to have an external stock chart of Apple. So I can watch the Apple stock price on Thinkorswim while I'm actually trading the NQ in NinjaTrader. So that's a way to save money. The tools that you absolutely need, in my opinion, to do this right would be obviously NinjaTrader for trading the instrument NQ, or the YM, depending on the stocks you decide to trade for earnings, and a brokerage account that will show you live stock prices after 4 p.m. also, because most earnings that we are trading are taking place after 4 p.m. or before the market opens in the morning. So you got to have the ability to see those stock prices moving after or before market hours. Okay, so that's important. The other tool that you want to have, if you are using a multi-brokerage account with NinjaTrader, then as long as you use and you're looking at stock prices in your NinjaTrader, as long as you have your chart set properly, so you would right click on your stock chart, click on data series, and make sure that your trading hours is set to default 24/7. And that way, your chart would be set, and I'm getting an error because there's no data, it's a Sunday, but you're going to see the stock price move after 4 p.m. I have to laugh a little bit Eastern time. When I first started doing this years ago, I didn't know that there was a setting that I had to set my NinjaTrader to so I could see the stock prices moving. So when I first started doing this, I didn't understand why I didn't see the stock price changing after 4 p.m. I knew it was something silly that I was doing wrong. And then so I went through one earnings quarter not seeing the stock price. It made it quite a bit harder because I didn't know when the earnings were coming out. So to summarize, we are trading earnings for many of the stocks that we trade using the standard breakout setup that we've been teaching in the challenge. Many of the stocks will function well using a standard breakout, but we do have other settings in our software. We have range trades that we can do as a trade setup. We have the one-click range trade also. So we have multiple setups that are appropriate for different times that earnings get released. Sometimes if we can't count on the earnings being released at a very specific time, then we have to make sure we can manipulate our price of the bracket in the best possible way. So we may use a slightly different setup. The one-click range trade is a different setup. And or sometimes you want to trade ranges. Some of the small, newer little earnings trades we're doing, we're able to actually do as range trades on the YM. So a very interesting methodology that we started years ago that more and more is doing better and better as we've been able to fine-tune the tools that we use. So let me show you a couple of trades because it's always fun to look at them, and then I'll answer any questions that anyone has. Okay, so again, to summarize, we're using our normal software. We're trading many breakout setups. So a breakout setup means that we can choose a specific time that we're trading, and we could put our orders on the chart at a specific time, and it's going to work just like a normal news trade. Even though you can't 100% always count on the companies to release their earnings on the exact time. That's the challenge. That's always the possibility we might miss an earnings trade. Then you have to be prepared possibly to cancel an earnings trade if it doesn't look like they're going to release them at the right time. So again, studying, following the history, going back significant periods of time, and tracking that history allows you to create the best setups. I do want to thank all the people that are watching us on YouTube. We have a ton of people watching on YouTube. You know, definitely hit that like button. And if you hit the notification bell, you'll also know the next time we're going to stream. We stream once a week on YouTube. So thank you all for watching. And then I'll go back and answer some questions. So just so everyone understands, a lot of you in the challenge are doing this breakout strategy. Earnings for many of the stocks we do are working the same way. Our stops are probably bigger than what you're used to, but we are trading earnings using our breakout setup. You can also trade earnings with the MNQ, with the micro futures. They work very well with micros also. So let me see if I have any questions. Let me show you a couple of trades. To set that 24 mode, you would go, and that's only if you are using a multi-brokerage NinjaTrader account. Your 24 mode would need to be set so you can see the stock price, So when I'm using my charts, and one of my charts is also connected to TD Ameritrade, which is Thinkorswim, okay? They're owned by the same company. When I'm connected to both TD Ameritrade and my NinjaTrader account, in order to see that stock price after 4 p.m., you have to click on data series on the chart, and on trading hours, you have to be on default 24/7 for your time, okay? And then you apply it and okay it. And then when you're getting ready, you'll be able to see when the earnings come out. And so what do I mean you'll be able to see when the earnings come out? So when you look at a good solid earnings move, okay, like Meta had a really good move this particular month or this particular quarter. Watch what's going to happen. It's going to be quick. All right. The stock explodes, okay, to the upside. Most probably what that means, it's going to push the NQ to the upside, okay? So right before the earnings come out, our orders are on the chart. The stock exploded that quarter exactly at the same time as our NQ exploded. Sometimes the stock will give you a tip and it'll be a tiny bit early, okay? Sometimes there will be weird volatility in the stock price right before the earnings come out. And those are nuances that you just learn to see them as you do more and more earnings trades. But this was a great Meta trade. It was very quick, very easy, pretty painless. Our orders went on the chart. Meta shot right up. And boom, a nice profit. That was, like I said, that was that $955 trade. And let's see, we had some smaller trades, like we trade Intel. Intel, not quite as big a mover. You could see our orders are on the chart. Intel stock price is on the right, and we're waiting for Intel to come out. I'm keeping my orders as close to the current price as I can, but I don't want to get filled, so I'm keeping it far away so that I don't get filled. There's volatility in the NQ a little bit because it's close to the end of the day. It's only less than a minute since the market closed. Intel explodes to the upside, pulling me into the NQ for a winning earnings trade. And then, let's see, going back to Apple. This is going back a while, January 22. Apple comes out, boom, explodes up, $970 on Apple. Let's see what we got here. This might be an Amazon. So we got an Amazon trade coming up. Getting ready. Quite the World Cup game. I don't believe this. Is it? Are they still playing? Am I going crazy? Are they still playing? So here's an Amazon trade. Amazon stock explodes. Looked like a double move. That was a little tricky, a little nerve-wracking, right? There was a very big move that didn't fill us, okay? You can see the stock out of the corner of your eye on the right side there. We have big brackets on Amazon because Amazon's a very big mover. Very big brackets. I'm keeping the price away. The earnings explode to the downside, bring us into the trade. $500 on that one. You could see the stock moved also to the downside. That was a big Amazon trade. Okay, I want to make sure everybody can hear me, okay? Everybody can hear me. Let me show you a couple more. Let's see what we have here. This is old. Let's see if it's a winner. I think we have a Google trade here. Google has never been one of my favorites. Never have traded Google that well. Their moves traditionally haven't been quite as good. So this one, the orders go on the chart. And you can see the price action on the Google stock is starting to heat up. It shoots down. And it looks like no trade on this one. There was no, you know what? I think that the earnings weren't out yet. That's what I think happened. There was a false move. And it was still only a little bit after 4. Now we put the orders on again. No move. And that was one where the price action was very tricky and I missed the trade. And that'll happen. Sometimes the move will just not be manageable and I missed that trade. Okay. And again, plenty of times you're going to miss a trade, you're not ready or they come out when you're not expecting it. It happens. It's all part of the same thing. You never torture yourself. You just go on to the next trade. Let's take a look and see if I can find a Netflix. Everybody loves Netflix. Netflix traditionally is also the first earnings trade that we take of the earnings season, okay? Almost always, they come out first. This was an April trade. Netflix, real nice trade, got pulled right into the market short. And that was over a $600 trade on Netflix. So once again, what we're doing, I'm watching the stock price. I'm setting up a futures breakout order on the NQ because Netflix is part of the NASDAQ index, right? We know from the history, it's going to move that index when the earnings come out. The earnings come out, the price explodes to the downside, and we get pulled into that trade for a really nice profit on that trade. So obviously, look, every single trade is not always a winner, but using the tools that we have, we've had a tremendous amount of excellent winning trades, trading earnings in this unusual way. I've never run into anyone else who trades earnings quite like this. We're trading the index, the NASDAQ index, to trade a stock. It's unusual. It's unusual. So let me go through some of the questions. All right, let me go back here and see what we got. What a game, huh? Okay. So just to understand, there's nothing complicated about using thinkorswim with NinjaTrader. In order to integrate it, one of the questions is, how do you use thinkorswim with NinjaTrader? So the only issue is you have to upgrade to the multi-broker account. Then when you have a multi-broker account, you set up a second connection for thinkorswim. It may be called TD Ameritrade, so that you can log in to your TD Ameritrade account. Then the chart that you create with a stock price will be connected to that brokerage account. That's all you have to do. There's no complicated setup. And then you just have to remember, if you want to make sure you see the stock price, data series, and make sure your trading hours are default 24/7. That's all you have to do to be able to see and integrate NinjaTrader and thinkorswim. And NinjaTrader can integrate with other brokers. I believe they can also integrate with IB. But IB does not allow for day trade margins. I don't think they ever allow day trading margins on futures, so it's very expensive to trade futures on IB. And there, from what we've seen of the data, it wasn't quite as quick as we thought it was on thinkorswim. So we've been very happy monitoring our stock pricing for earnings on thinkorswim. Let me just see if there's anything else. Chris is asking, is it mostly NQ? I would say it's NQ on all the FANG stocks. It's going to depend on what stock's earnings you're looking to do. If it's a stock that significantly moves the NQ, then you trade the NQ. Now, honestly, you could probably trade the ES on Apple earnings because they will move the ES as well. So I'm sure you could trade the ES as well. And the stocks that move the NQ are the FANG stocks: Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. Okay, and Google is really Alphabet. Alphabet is the parent company. So it's GOOGL, right? It's the parent company. Now, the only thing someone is asking, how do you find out the time for the reports? There's no way to find out the time for the reports except to study, because like I said at the beginning, it's all of our years of studying that has allowed us to set these up as a breakout trade. Obviously, our ability to do the research is what we are always looking to offer you, right? We're offering the fact that we've done years of research so you don't have to. So when someone joins our earnings trade rooms, we know what time to trade these earnings. But otherwise, you'd have to go back and spend the research time understanding you got to figure out when those earnings are released. Okay, I literally have spent, I can't even tell you how many hours. I don't even know. An unbelievable amount of hours doing it. I tried YouTube. I don't know what you mean, John, about YouTube being distracting. Going through, is there a website where I get the info what stock has earnings? Yes, I forgot about that, Harold. Thank you. So there's a couple of great website tools that are important. One of my favorites, let me show you one of my favorites. We use earningswhispers.com. That's the main site that I use to come up with my earnings plays. I'll show you how to use it. Give me 1 second. So just go to www.earningswhispers.com, and it'll come up looking like this. Okay, now Earnings Whispers has a calendar. Click on the calendar in the upper left. Okay, and then over here on the right, they have a standard view and a list view. When you go on list view, you'll see a smaller list. Like on Tuesday, you could see that there's 6 earnings before the open, 14 after the open. Click on Tuesday and it'll list. That's the list view. And they have before market open, after market close. So what I normally do is I'll sort the list usually by time and also by name, and you have to do them separately, okay? So first I'll usually do time, and then I'll look and see who's releasing first, and I'll usually look after the market close. I prefer to do my earnings after the market close. So Tuesday, you've got FedEx with no time yet, so I don't know when they're coming out. And maybe I'm interested in Nike. You know, Nike at 4:15 might be interested, okay? So that might be interested. I might be interested in Nike. So you're sorting by time and or by alphabetizing, okay? And go through the lists by day. Like Monday the 26th, there's a ton. There's a ton of earnings. Now, sometimes, especially on a weekend, I can't always get the lists to stay. Sometimes you have to wait till the week comes up. Unfortunately, all the lists don't stay up. But so looking at a small list, okay, you can see how you can sort that, get the times, and decide, well, do you want to trade those particular companies or not? All right. And usually I use Netflix as the start for the stocks that we're going to trade for the earnings season. Okay. So earningswhispers.com is the main site that I use for earnings. I mean, there's a lot of other sites that people use. They're my favorite. They will send you a weekly list of the important earnings that are coming out in the upcoming week, and it's an excellent site. So earningswhispers.com, definitely an important tool in listening to the earnings. Figure this, if you hear the earnings being released on TV, you've missed the trade. You have to be, if you're going to listen to a squawk box, you need to find some sort of squawk box that'll give you the earnings before they get them on TV. Otherwise, what we do, we're essentially using price action to show us what earnings, when the earnings are being released, when they are released, because we get pulled into the trade more often than not because of the price action, okay? So Juan, I don't understand the question you're asking about the error signal. Sometimes in a very fast trade, you might get the software saying, hey, where's the stop? The stop's not there because you already hit your targets. So that might have been what that error was on that earnings trade. The stop didn't even get placed because it hit our target and took us out of the trade before it could get to it. So it printed an error, but the trade was over. So it didn't matter. Any other questions? Let me just see if we have any other questions on earnings. Does the move in the stock move the NQ in the same direction most of the time? Yes. And yes, finviz.com, is it finviz.com also a very, very good website also? Let me double check that. They have some very good lists. Finviz.com, okay? Very helpful for earnings, all right? Another good site that people like a lot. That's a good tool also. Let's see, what else? So someone's asking, you know, each company official website, they do not show exact release times, Arthur, and honestly, they don't. They just say before, after the market open. They do not have to release, they do not have to give an exact time on their release time. That's the last of the questions. It's not regulated when they're going to release their earnings. If you go to the website, Arthur, if you go to the website and find out that it's exact, please tell me, and I'll spend more time on their websites. Okay. Arthur, what you need to do is come into the next earnings workshop, okay? Come into the next earnings workshop. I need live market data to show you what to do, but there is nothing to do special other than just understanding that your stock chart, you're not even trading on your stock chart, you're just watching it. We're not trading the broker. We're just using it to watch the data. That's it. We're just watching the data. So there's nothing to do in terms of using NinjaTrader. You just have to have that multi-broker account so that you can see the data. That's all we're doing, is watching the data, okay? Any other questions, folks? So earnings are quarterly. So I would say we have currently easily 12 at a minimum major companies that we're watching their earnings release and trading. At least 12, and that we probably had, I'd say we have about 8 smaller earnings plays that we've been watching for the first time. UPS and Uber, companies we never watched before. Snap was a company we never watched before. They had a pretty big move on the NQ. We had just recently added NVIDIA and AMD. So we're always looking to add new companies to the earnings plays. So folks, I hope you enjoyed that. It's an interesting, clever way to trade something you wouldn't expect, using the tools that we have, using our breakout software to trade earnings with futures. Who would think that it would even be possible? It's an interesting way to do things. I want to remind everybody that the end of the challenge is coming. So please, hang on, let me just make sure I had no other questions. When the strategy is enabled, you do not manually have to adjust the price if it's a very quick setup. If it's a quick release of the earnings, then you won't have to manually edit or change any prices. But it's nice to have the ability to move orders if you need that ability, okay? So I'm just looking to make sure I get through all the questions. So I want to remind everybody for the final time, absolutely try to get your video in, the transformation video. Our trade for Monday, tomorrow, our graduation trade, come into the room at 8 o'clock. We've posted the DMM on Facebook. Everybody should be ready to go to trade the graduation trade. Of course, everybody can do it in sim. You don't have to trade live if you're not ready to trade live. But I think everyone that's been in the challenge, how many people are going to make it to the trade room tomorrow? Most of you going to make it for the 8 o'clock trade to trade with us? I'm just curious. How many people are going to make it? So looks like we're going to have a great turnout. Most everybody. How about, is everybody going to make the video? How many are you going to make the video? Most of you going to make your video? I know it's a little bit of homework to make a video, right? It's a little bit of homework. And if you only have to watch us trade and set up the trade, try to take it in sim. Try to take the trade in sim, okay? No, you're not, James. Nobody's too ugly. Nobody's goofier looking than me. Nobody's goofier than me, okay? So make the video so you have a chance to win the prizes. That's all you got to do. It's no big deal. Make the video. Anybody have any questions that they need me to answer for today? Anybody have anything they need help with? I think we've come a tremendous way in this challenge. It's been an unbelievable amount of information. It's been crazy how much info there's been. So any questions, anybody? So don't forget, Wednesday's the last session. You got to come. You have to come. All right. So we're not done yet. Tomorrow we've got, oh, and I wanted to mention, I didn't want to forget family money trades. Eric's going to talk about family money trades on Wednesday. Very simply, so what is a family money trade? So there are times when we have more family money trades and sometimes we have less. Okay, sometimes you have more, sometimes we have less. Very simple. A family money trade, like US retail. US retail is a family money trade because 7 of the last 8 US retail trades were winners. So a family money trade is a trade that offers the highest quality report to trade. And very seriously, it all started because I was thinking, what if I were trading my own family's money? Would I be willing to risk their money on that trade? And that's how I came up with the idea of family money trade. I'd be willing to trade my own family's money on that trade. Okay, that's how I decided. So the question is, will the videos be available after the challenge ends? You know what? I'm going to leave that mark to Eric. I would think if someone does not mind their video being shown, then yes. But if someone doesn't want their video shown, then it won't be, shown to the group. Okay. But I'm going to leave that to Eric to answer that ultimately. I'll leave that one to him. Any other questions? Any other questions? Everybody's ready for the trade tomorrow, right? And we have an hour to prepare for it in the trade room at 8 o'clock. So don't forget, we have plenty of time to prepare for the trade. And we're going to do it just like a real trade room. Okay, it's going to be just like, it's a real trade room and you're really, starting your life as a trader. Okay. So I want to thank everybody for giving me time on your Sunday. Another nice lesson, and I'll see everybody tomorrow. Okay. So don't forget, try to get the video done. Block off your time so you can come on Wednesday. Wednesday is really important session. It's the final session. And I'll see everybody tomorrow at noon. Thanks everybody on YouTube for watching. There's one more question on YouTube. Can the software enter a market order based on entry? Yes, it can enter at a specific time. JLG, it can enter a market order at a specific time. Entry tomorrow, Zia, is specifically for the challenge members. It's specifically for the challenge members, okay? All right, any other questions? James, back to bed in Australia. 8 o'clock Eastern time in the trade room, Zia, in our trade room. If you're a challenge member, yes, in the trade room. Definitely check your email or the Facebook group for info on how to get in if you're confused. If you're confused, just send us an email, help@10minutetrades.com, help@10minutetrades.com. Okay? All right, everyone, have a great Sunday. Argentina won it. Okay, not surprised, messy. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day, folks. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care, everyone.